Well, good evening. It's my pleasure to be here. And the topic that I want to tell you to talk about today is it's a huge and complex story. And I just have 10 minutes to talk about it. So it's just hard, right? So I'm just going to start saying, reminding us that our Earth's climate is heating. The average global temperature has increased 1.2 degrees in the last century and a half, which is a lot, right? And it has already had like irreparable consequences. And if we don't take enough and efficient actions, those consequences are going to be harder and worse. And today's story is about one of the most impacted ecosystems, the ocean, and its relationship with human populations. So, the first thing that I want to ask you to do is to think about climate change, those words. What's the first image that comes into your mind when I say climate change? And the most familiar pictures, probably, at least in Google, it's a wildfire and a polar bear standing in the last tiny piece of ice in the Arctic, right? Those are the images. But usually those images come alone. We don't think about the background or the context of those images. What other implications have that the polar bear, that individual, is running out of food or home? What other species are there? What happened to the fishes that are below that polar bear? Or what happened to the ice of that piece of ice that is swimming in the Arctic? So the impacts of climate change on one ecosystem and one species affects the life history of other species and other ecosystems. And usually, if a human system is involved there, somehow, if we eat from those ecosystems, humans are impacted too. So this is the case of the ocean. Climate change is affecting oceans and seas. Climate change has changed the biophysical and chemical conditions of ocean, and marine ecosystems have been affected too. And we depend on the oceans. There are many communities that depend on the ocean. So food systems and economic systems and health systems of humans are being affected too. So we know a lot about the ecosystem and a lot about climate. So now the question is, what does this mean for health, for human health? And well, many social and ecological outcomes could be discussed, but today I'm going to talk about health. And one of these variables is nutrition. And actually, aquatic food systems are highly nutritious. They are highly rich in micronutrients. So in this graph, we can see in blue, aquatic food systems, items, and in green, terrestrial ones. And the darker, the better, because here we are watching the concentration of micronutrients. So we can see that relative to the limited variation that terrestrial food systems have in micronutrients, aquatic food systems present a myriad options for micronutrients. And the next question is, if climate change is impacting the ocean, and the ocean is generating a lot of micronutrients for our food system, what does this mean for human health? And the true answer is that we don't know yet. There's a lot of research going on around the world about climate change and micronutrient concentration, the decrease in micronutrient concentration in the ocean. However, there is nothing going on about health. So what is happening to the communities that depend on the ocean? And health is not one variable. Health are complex networks of variables. So in this case, we can see that when the nutritional status diminish, it affects other systems in our body. For example, the immune system. And what happens to the immune system? It's our defense system. The immune system is our soldiers, right? Our army against other species, pathogens. So when the nutritional status of an individual is impacted, their immune capacity is impacted too. And then our response to infectious diseases that actually are increasing because of climate change is decreased too, right? So there is nothing going on. And it seems that the immune system is not a thing that is being researched. So this is a systematic review about climate change and health outcomes. And if you can see here, this is the number of articles that discuss climate change and the health outcome. And we can see here that we have nutrition and some infectious disease here, foodborne, waterborne, and vector-borne diseases. But what about the immune system? It's not there. So after this review, we did a more specific systematic review looking at these health outcomes, this triad, the nutrition, immunity, and infection. And well, it's worth to say that this is in North America. Out of 93 articles that discuss somehow climate change and nutrition and food security, 93, only 3 articles, you can see nothing about it, but just see the size of the square. Only 3 articles included nutrition, immune system, and infectious diseases in the same article, only 3. However, none of these 3 articles discuss how are linked these 3 variables. So it's shocking because what we are doing now here in the research around the world is taking health as with a univariate perspective. So health is just one variable, and it's not. It's a complex network of variables. So don't worry, because we are working on it. So additional to analyze complex health variables, we notice other things that are happening around the world in research. And one of these things, there are 2 factors that we think are important to add to our research. The first one is that most modeling and projecting studies are based on national or big regional databases, general and broad databases. So small communities are overlooked, are not studied. So one of the factors that we think is important is to develop these databases. So we are collaborating with the fishing communities in Mexico, remote fishing communities in Mexico, to develop a case study to generate this data, to know exactly what is happening in these remote communities. How do they relate with the ocean? And how climate change is affecting their food system. And the second thing is combining local knowledge with science. So we think it's super important to know how are they feeling, how do they think about this topic, because remote communities are the ones that are experiencing the most higher effect of climate change. So together, we're trying to build a One Health approach, and to study climate change and blue human health. And before wrapping up this presentation for our discussion section, I would like to highlight that actually seafood is a new trend, a new global trend. Food systems in general are the major are a major generating pressure of climate change. They generate more than 1/4 of all greenhouse gas emissions. So seafood seems to play a key role in this section. Here in this amazing study, this is from UK, so this is UK data, but this is amazing and it's pretty new. They analyze the carbon footprint of different food systems, and you can see in red seafood and in black terrestrial food system. So comparing terrestrial food systems that their carbon footprint is huge, seafood have a higher nutrient density and a lower carbon footprint. So this is amazing. So blue foods, obviously sustainable produced, can help achieve different sustainable goals. So we don't have just one SDG here, that is climate action, but we have it can help us end hunger because it's super nutritious, and it can help us to achieve good health and well-being. It can help us to achieve the responsible consumption and production. and also to achieve the sustainability of our oceans, water, land, and climate, obviously. Thank you.